Today we're making my chocolate fudge layer cake. This is, in my opinion, the ultimate chocolate cake, and it's super easy to make. There's layers of moist chocolate sponge, a rich chocolate fudge frosting, and a mascarpone dark chocolate ganache. Before we make the cake batter, we need to grease two 8-inch round cake tins with butter, and then line just the base with a disc of baking parchment. You'll also need to preheat an oven to 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit. The cake batter itself is quick to make, so we need to make sure to give the oven plenty of time to heat up. To line the cake tins, you can either use a ready cut circle of baking parchment, or you can do it yourself. You do this the exact same way as making a cartouche. To do this, you take a piece of baking parchment and fold it into a triangle. Then you fold it in half another 3 times to get a thin triangle. You need to cut the triangle down so it's the same length from the centre of the cake tin to the outer edge. Then if it's too big, just fold it back up and cut some more off. You should end up with a disc of parchment that completely covers the base of the tin, and you'll need to do this for both tins. Now it's on to the cake batter. The secret ingredient to make a dark chocolate cake is to use black cocoa powder. So we're going to add 85 grams of cocoa powder into a jug, along with 2 teaspoons of instant coffee and 160 grams of boiling water. Then we'll give it a whisk to combine and set it to one side so it can bloom the cocoa and cool down slightly. This step is an easy way to add extra flavour to your chocolate cake. Next we'll add 250 grams of plain flour into a mixing bowl, along with 200 grams of caster sugar, 200 grams of dark brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and 3/4 teaspoon of table salt. Then we just need to give the dry ingredients a quick whisk to combine. If your brown sugar is a bit lumpy, just use your fingertips to break it up. This just avoids getting lumps of unmixed sugar in the cake batter. Once that's all mixed, we'll just set the bowl to one side for now as well. For the wet ingredients, I've got 125 grams of unsalted butter that I melted in the microwave, and to that I'm going to add 75 grams of veg oil, 250 grams of room temperature sour cream, 4 large eggs that each weigh around 50 grams out of the shell, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Then we'll just give this a very quick whisk to combine. Don't worry about getting it completely smooth though. Then we're ready to mix the batter together. This is super easy to do, you just add in the chocolate mix and the wet ingredients, then gently whisk together to combine. It's key not to overmix the batter, so we just need to whisk it gently until there are no streaks of flour, and then we can swap over to a spatula just to give the bowl a quick scrape down. So as this batter contains bicarb, we need to get it into the oven straight away. For even layers, I like to weigh the batter into the tins. For this cake, each tin should have around 775 grams of cake batter in. Once we've done that, I like to give the tins a gentle tap on the surface just to pop any air bubbles, and then we get them straight into the oven. Then they need to bake for 30 to 35 minutes until they're well risen and a skewer inserted into the centre comes out clean. It's best to check the cake in a couple of spots just to be sure. Next we're going to let the cakes cool in the tin for 15 minutes before turning them out. This just gives the cakes time to firm up slightly so they don't break. Then after 15 minutes we're going to run a small sharp knife around the edge of each tin before turning the cakes out onto a wire cooling rack. You want to make sure to hold your knife straight up so it doesn't cut into the cake. I found to make the cakes as flat as possible, you place them top side down onto the cooling rack. Then once the cakes are out of the tins, we can peel the parchment off and then let them cool until they're just slightly warm. Then we'll be wrapping them up in cling film whilst they're still slightly warm, as this will keep them moist. And then we're going to chill them in the fridge overnight, as this will make it easier to cut them in half, and it also helps improve the flavour. Next we'll be making the chocolate ganache, as this needs time to set. So in a pan we're going to add 75 grams of golden syrup, 350 grams of double cream, and 75 grams of roughly chopped unsalted butter. Then we're going to warm this mix up over a low heat, stirring frequently until the butter is melted. The aim here is to make the cream steaming hot but not boiling. If you take the temperature of the cream with a food probe, it will reach around 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit once it's ready. Whilst the cream's heating up, you need to chop 360 grams of good quality dark chocolate into small pieces. Then place into a large heat-proof mixing bowl along with a pinch of sea salt. For the richest flavour, I'd recommend using a 72% dark chocolate, and it's best to use bars of chocolate instead of chips, as it will melt more evenly. So once the cream's up to temperature, we're going to pour it over the chocolate, then let the mix stand for 2 minutes without stirring. This just helps the chocolate melt more evenly and stops the ganache from splitting. Then after 2 minutes, we'll use a spatula to gently stir the cream and chocolate together until it's melted and smooth. It's best to start mixing from the middle and work your way outwards. Also make sure to stir the ganache gently to avoid adding too much air into the mix. You should end up with something that looks like this. Next we're going to add 100 grams of room temperature mascarpone into the ganache and then use a stick blender to blend it all together. The mascarpone is added to make the ganache extra rich and it also makes it set a bit softer so it spreads more easily. Don't worry if the mix looks split to begin with, just keep blending and it will all come together. The finished ganache will be smooth and shiny with a thick consistency. Next we're going to transfer the ganache to a shallow dish and then cover the surface with a piece of cling film. Then we need to let it cool so it's thick enough to spread onto our cake. This will take an hour or two at room temperature, or you can speed this process up and pop it in the fridge. If you chill it, you'll need to let the ganache sit at room temperature for around an hour before using. So once the ganache is set, we can make the frosting. Here I've got 40 grams of black cocoa powder. Then I'm going to pour in 100 grams of steaming hot double cream and then stir to combine. This is how we bloom the cocoa for the frosting, and you can warm the cream up in the microwave or on the stove. It should be steaming hot but not boiling. I've also got 120 grams of roughly chopped dark chocolate. I'm just going to melt that in the microwave and then let both components cool before making the frosting. The chocolate and cocoa will take around 20 minutes to cool. Next we're going to add 120 grams of softened unsalted butter into the bowl of a stand mixer, along with 200 grams of sifted icing sugar, and a pinch of table salt. Then we're going to mix on a medium speed with the paddle attachment until the butter and sugar is light and fluffy. This will take around 4 to 5 minutes, and it's best to scrape the bowl down regularly with a spatula so you get an evenly mixed frosting. Once the butter and sugar is mixed, we're going to add in 100 grams of room temperature mascarpone, 50 grams of golden syrup, and the bloomed cocoa and melted dark chocolate. If you haven't got any golden syrup, light corn syrup will work as well. It's there to add sweetness and to give the frosting a glossy finish. Once that's all added, we're going to continue mixing the frosting on a medium speed for another 2 to 3 minutes until it's got a thick, fluffy and smooth consistency. To avoid white streaks in the frosting, make sure to scrape the bowl and paddle down several times during this step. Then once mixed, your frosting should look like this. So now that all our components are made, it's time to assemble the cake. To To start, we need to cut each sponge in half widthways so we get 4 thin layers. And I've got a baking tray and 4 pieces of baking parchment so we can stack the sponges up as we cut them. So to cut the sponges, I like to use a sharp serrated knife. Then the easiest way is to take your time, slowly cutting through the cake holding your knife flat, parallel to your chopping board. It's not the end of the world if your layers aren't completely flat, and you'll get the hang of it after a few goes. When you do this, you'll see why it's easier to chill your cakes beforehand. So once you've cut your cake, flip the top layer over, then stack the layers up between baking parchment. Flipping the cake upside down gives us a flatter surface to spread the frosting on. Then it's just a case of repeating the process with the second sponge. You can do this with a cake leveler cutter tool, but I find that a sharp serrated knife works best. If you've got a turntable, it will make your life a whole lot easier when you assemble the cake. Then I'm going to place a non-slip mat on top, followed by a cake board. Next, I'm going to spread a small amount of frosting on top of the board, and then place a layer of sponge on top. The frosting's there to stop the cake from sliding around. Next up is a layer of frosting, so the aim here is to use just under a third of the frosting per layer, which will leave us with a small amount to use as a crumb coat. I like to use a large cookie scoop to add 2 spoonfuls of the frosting on top of the cake. Then I use a palette knife to spread it out into an even layer that reaches the edge of the sponge. Like I mentioned earlier, we're using some of the frosting as a crumb coat, so don't worry if it spills over the edge of the cake. Once we spread the frosting out, we'll add another layer of sponge on top, making sure that it's sat on straight. Then we just need to repeat the frosting and cake layers twice more, and then we'll end up with 4 cake layers and 3 frosting layers. You can take your time here and just make sure to stack everything up straight, otherwise you'll end up with a wonky cake. So once we've stacked the frosting and cake up, we're going to spoon the rest of the frosting, there should only be a little bit, all over the edge of the cake in a thin layer to make a crumb coat. This doesn't have to be neat or tidy, just gives us an even flat surface to spread on the ganache. Once that's all done, I like to give the board a quick wipe with a damp cloth, and then we're going to chill the cake in the fridge for 1 hour to let the frosting firm up slightly. So next up is the ganache layer. So I chilled my ganache as I made it ahead of time, so I let it sit at room temperature for around an hour before using. Then to give it a more spreadable consistency, I'm just going to give it a quick stir with a spatula. You'll need to do this if you chilled it or if you let it set at room temperature. Then we're going to take the cake out of the fridge and spoon a generous amount of the ganache on top. Then we can use a palette knife to spread the ganache all over the sides and top of the cake in an even layer. Don't worry if it's not too neat at this point, as we'll be tidying it up later on. To neaten up the sides, I like to take a bigger palette knife and run it around the edge whilst turning the turntable. The great thing about this cake though is that you can make it as uniform or as rustic as you like. And once the sides are done, we can neaten the top up as well. Like before, we're just going to give the board a quick wipe with a damp cloth as well. To finish the cake, I like to give the ganache a really quick blowtorch to give it a glossy finish. We don't want to melt it though, so we do this really gently. You can also skip this step if you don't have a blowtorch. Then for the final step, I take a small palette knife and use it to make a few decorative swoops on the side and on the top of the cake. And that's it, the chocolate fudge cake is now ready to slice and serve. If you're making it ahead of time, you'll need to store the cake in the fridge, but bring it back up to room temperature before serving. Now a handy trick for cutting the neatest slices of cake is to use a large sharp knife that's been dipped in warm water and dried between cuts. You sometimes see people blowtorching their knife, but this runs the risk of ruining the temper in your blade, which will eventually cause it to break, which is why I always use hot water instead. And that's how to make my chocolate fudge layer cake. If you want to make it even better, give it 10 to 20 seconds in the microwave and then serve it with cold double cream or a scoop of vanilla ice cream. And if you'd like the full written recipe, head over to my blog saltbuttersmoke.com. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you've liked this video.